6 at the slow. So
Okay, here.
but can you imagine if I compete members of the public with what the heck is going on here? It was really funny. They said, what's he doing?
Yeah, not very common. Call the public hearing in order for the Village of Round Lake Beach for Monday, March 27, 2017. Please call the roll.
Trustee Husk.
Here.
Trustee Valdez. Trustee Wallace.
Here.
Trustee Butler.
Here.
Trustee Nichols.
Here.
Trustee Bennis. Mayor Hill.
Here. For the record, show a quorum is present. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by trustee Wallace, second by trustee Husk. We have a motion to second. Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved as written. We only have one item of business tonight. That's the 2017-18 fiscal year budget. I'll turn it over to Kevin Boyce, our finance director. Kevin?
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, and the board. Let me put this slide on the screen so we can go through this hearing. So the hearing, as the mayor mentioned, is for the fiscal year 2018 budget. This covers revenues and expenditures for May 1st, 2017 through April 30th, 2018. The first slide is about the financial planning and reporting process here at the village. In October, November, we go through updating the financial forecast, capital plan, and now in November through March, we update the annual budget. Throughout the year, the village receives and reviews the monthly treasurer's report, and that is done through the finance committee. And then in May through October, we go through the audit process. So that does include field work and issuing the financial reports. Specifically to the fiscal year 2018 budget timeline. So the way that the village board has implemented the budget, it's a annual process that goes through different stages. The first one is through the multi-year capital plans. So with the guidance of the village administrator and then the department heads, the village board reviews and approves several capital plans. So this does include the streets, the equipment replacement, and by the time we get to starting the budgeting process, the village board in a way has pre-approved or has approved 61% of the budget based on amount. Again, because of the road and how much the village board or the village invests in capital plans, 61% of the budget has already been approved through this process. Then in May through October, we review the water rates and also the audit reports are issued. At this time, we review the fund balance, and through this step, 11% of the budget is approved, which takes us to 72% of it. Then in November, we review the insurance premiums. This includes general liability, also workers' comp, health insurance, all of those. Also, the 2016 tax rate was reviewed at this time, and then lease for CENTCOM. Through this step, about 16% of the budget was approved, which takes us to 88%. Again, the fiscal year 2018 capital plan was reviewed and approved in December. When we get to January, we're talking about the debt service, which is about $2 million, and we review the bond abatement, which basically appropriates funds to pay for the debt service out of the general fund instead of levying taxes for it. Through this process, 15% of the budget is approved, and which takes us to 91%. So this takes us to where we are now, which is basically talking about 9% of the budget, or basically reviewing operating supplies, updating any projected balances that we have been estimating over the year. So because of these very organized process, when we get to this point, it's more about reviewing what has been approved throughout the year and updating those projections. So with regards to the 2018 budget, some of the challenges that we're seeing now includes the state finances. I don't think I need to kind of talk too much about it, but we all know that 2 years without a state budget has influenced or impacted our way to either plan for taxation or also forecasting for what revenues come through the state. Some of the major revenues that we're currently looking at, some potential issues, including the amusement tax, income tax, water sales. We're estimating or projecting that we're going to lose one of the largest customers through water sales, so that it's a discussion point that we have to take into account for next fiscal year. But again, that's something that we have to start planning for now. Again, property values are increasing, and how we're going to handle related taxation of those. That's also another discussion that after talking to the village board, we'll have to plan for that for fiscal year 2019 budget. With regards to the highlights for this budget, we are budgeting for 77 full-time equivalent employees. There's no request to increase any fees, licensing, or any other taxes. All capital plans that have been discussed are fully funded. That does include the streets, equipment, cars, anything related to the water main. It does include the potential use of a $2.6 million EPA loan. Again, with interest rate increasing, this is a good way to get access to financing through the EPA at a fixed rate of 2.5%. And then we're also adhering to our fund balance policy of 65%. There are several ways that we can break down the budget. In total, including transfers from the operating funds to the smaller funds, we're talking about $32,194,259. And this chart here is basically a way so if anyone is interested in comparing the budget to the audit, they can trace it back and forth. So governmental funds, it does include the largest operating fund, which is the general fund, and that's $13,951,918. This is where most of the departments are funded through. And then all the other smaller funds are included in there, including the enterprise fund, which is water and sewer operations. So when we look at the revenues, where the money is coming from, including where these 32 million are coming from, including the funds or the transfers between funds, the first item is tax collection. So these include property taxes, income tax, sales tax, home rule sales tax. So that's 43%. Licenses and permits is 1%. Fines is 1%. And then intergovernmental revenue, so these includes grants. Most of it is related to the IDA grant that the village was awarded. And miscellaneous revenue of less than 1%. Charges for services mostly related to water sales and room rentals at the Civic Center. It's 18%. Fees, this is related to water billing. It's 1%. And then other financing sources includes the issuance of debt, like the EPA loan, and also using fund balance. And then transfers in of 15%. It is a balanced budget, so revenues do match expenditures, or expenditures do match revenues. Expenditures by category, we're talking about transfers out of 15%. Salaries and benefits being the largest category within the budget, it's 29%. Contractual services is 20%. Commodities, 3%. Financing expenses, this is basically the debt service, and that's 8% of the budget. And then capital outlay, so this includes transfers to all the capital funds. The two main funds that the village has is the general fund and the water and sewer operations fund. So the general fund is $13,951,918. That does represent a 4% increase over the prior year budget. Most of it is related to tax incentives, which are outlined here by an increase of 367% over the prior year. So again, that's related to tax incentives more than operations. Taking this amount out of the equation, then we're talking about almost a flat budget for the general fund. water and sewer operations, there is a decrease of 4%. Most of it is related to the village is not rebudgeting for the maintenance of the water tower. So we're still doing it, but we're carrying that over as it's a carryover instead of using fund balance. So that's why there is that decrease of 4%. As I mentioned, we are adhering to the fund balance policy. Our fund balance policy is 65% of operating revenues. We're projected in 2017 to end at 73%. As indicated per the policy, we're required to transfer anything over that 65% to the capital plan, so that we're budgeting for to end up in fiscal year 2018 at 69%. And again, there is that 4 percentage points difference, mainly for inflationary and also to account for when the audit is completed in September or October this year. In conclusion, this budget accomplishes the following items. So it maintains current level of services. So there is no new proposed services or anything like that in this budget. Also, it maintains or replaces the current staffing levels and the resources, so buildings and that kind of stuff. So there's no addition to buying any new heavy equipment or anything like that. It's mostly replacing what we currently have. And again, it's funding for all the current capital plans. So with these, I'd like to thank the village administrator, the department heads for all the help and all the data entry that they did for this budget, and also the village board for the guidance to complete this budget as an annual process instead of a one-time kind of thing at the end of the fiscal year. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. As you can all see, we're on very good financial footing still. We weathered the storm while the financial bad years. Now we're coming in some of the better years. Like last year, we were able to do 10 miles of road repavement and repair and replacement because of the fund balances that we've created over the years, and we did a $5 million bond issue. So we're able to get some stuff done that needs to be done in our community here. Any of the trustees have any questions of Kevin of the budget? We've all sat through independent or individual meetings on that and ask all the questions at that time. Anyone in the audience have any questions on the budget for next year? Well, thank you for being here. We do appreciate that. And if there's no questions, do you have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Butler, second by
Second.
trustee Nichols. Have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This public hearing is now closed.